Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer and completely dismantle a massive misconception about who actually falls victim to sophisticated manipulation and cult indoctrination. When we hear stories about extreme groups, it's so easy to just brush them off, right? To think, oh, that's a phenomenon that only happens to other people. But today, we're digging into the exact psychological tactics cult leaders use to recruit. And honestly, what the source material reveals is going to turn everything you thought you knew completely upside down.
So, could a cult recruit you? I want you to be totally honest with yourself for a second. You're probably sitting there thinking you're way too intelligent, way too educated, and just way too rational to ever get caught in a trap like that. You watch all the documentaries, you can spot the red flags from a mile away, and you think your critical thinking skills are basically this impenetrable shield. But what if I told you that those exact traits, your intelligence, your skepticism, your beautifully rational mind, are exactly what make you a prime target?
Let's start breaking this down in Section 1, the gullibility myth. We usually picture the stereotypical recruit as lost, uneducated, or maybe just desperate, like some gullible drifter who's easily led astray. But the reality is literally the exact opposite. Manipulative leaders actively hunt for smart, successful minds. Just think about it from their perspective for a minute. If you're building this powerful organization, do you really want a follower who brings nothing to the table? Or do you want someone highly capable, wealthy, influential, and articulate who can actually help grow your empire? They definitely don't want weak minds. They want strong minds that they can weaponize. Let's see how they do this in Section 2, targeting smart, skeptical minds. Now, what's really wild here is that these incredibly positive traits, like a deep intellectual curiosity, high idealism, a relentless drive to solve complex problems, are exactly the handles a leader uses to grab hold of a skeptic. As a smart person, you naturally want to make the world better, and you definitely aren't satisfied with superficial answers. You want the deep truth. But that often comes paired with an overconfidence in your own rationality. You trust your own brain so much that you genuinely believe it could never betray you. And ironically, that is precisely the crack in the armor a skilled manipulator is looking for.
Which brings us to Section 3, psychological hooks and tactics.
So we have to talk about a devastatingly effective concept, cognitive dissonance. It's basically that severe mental discomfort you get when your beliefs totally contradict reality or your own actions. Let's look at historical groups like NXIVM, which notoriously targeted and successfully recruited highly successful Hollywood actors and business executives. Smart people absolutely hate being wrong. They hate feeling foolish. So leaders intentionally engineer situations that trigger this exact dissonance. When a massive, glaring red flag pops up, rather than just admitting they've been duped and dealing with the psychological pain of being wrong, the smart recruit uses their massive intellect to rationalize the red flag away. They essentially use their own brain power to protect their ego and justify staying involved. And this creates the ultimate trap, the steadfast belief that I'm too smart to be fooled. By leaning heavily into the recruit's own intellectual arrogance, the leader actually allows them to convince themselves they're just exploring some complex new framework, or maybe participating in this avant-garde philosophical experiment. They are totally blinded to the manipulation because they believe they're always the smartest person in the room, completely in control of the situation.
Let's look at how this plays out chronologically in Section 4, the recruitment process. This recruitment funnel is a 3-step progression, and it shows exactly how the psychological trap slowly tightens and completely dismantles the victim's defenses step by step. Because let's be real, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, methodical boiling of the proverbial frog. Let's break down each of these steps to see exactly how they function in real time.
Step 1 is the intellectual bait. And notice what's missing from this equation. It rarely starts with bizarre rituals, secret compounds, or immediate demands for unquestioning loyalty. If it did, any skeptic would walk away in a heartbeat. Instead, it almost always starts with an intellectually stimulating debate, an exclusive masterclass, or a profound philosophy that hooks the skeptic's deep desire for answers. The leader presents themselves as a peer or a highly educated mentor, offering a truly sophisticated solution to a complex societal problem. It just feels like an exclusive club for high-level thinkers. But once that intellectual bait is fully taken, we move to step 2, isolation. Now, this isn't necessarily physical isolation right off the bat. It's intellectual isolation. The environment subtly shifts to ensure the recruit's critical thinking is weaponized only against the outside world, never against the leader's ideology. Friends and family who raise concerns aren't just wrong, They're suddenly labeled as unenlightened, asleep, or part of the systemic problem the group is trying to solve. The recruit gets praised for their superior understanding, effectively building a massive wall of intellectual elitism between them and anyone who might try to talk them out of it. Which finally leads us to step 3, complete indoctrination. This is where they form a self-sealing, absolute logical loop. At this final stage, the recruit's intellect hasn't vanished. They haven't been lobotomized or anything. Instead, their massive mental horsepower has been entirely co-opted. They now use their intelligence to fiercely and rationally defend the cult's narrative against any logical attack. Because the system is self-sealing, any evidence against the leader is immediately reframed as proof that the outside world is corrupt and that the leader's teachings are actually correct. The smarter you are, the better you are at making these complex mental leaps. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Why This Matters Today. I want you to consider this profound realization. Psychological tactics specifically weaponize a person's intelligence and skepticism against them. What you should really take away from this explainer is that literally no one is naturally immune to manipulation. The very second you assume your intelligence is an automatic shield, you have basically handed over your single biggest vulnerability to anyone clever enough to use it against you. We're living in an era of intense echo chambers and highly sophisticated digital manipulation, and this exact dynamic plays out constantly on smaller scales all around us every single day. So if your intellect, the very thing you rely on to make sense of the world, is exactly what they use to trap you, how secure are your own beliefs right now? I want to leave you with that chilling thought to chew on, because true critical thinking doesn't just mean questioning others, it requires constantly and humbly questioning even your own perceived immunity. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the hard questions.